Hi, welcome to Armchair Philosophy. Because of Lawrence's incompetence, I have to record this in additional time. I'm Rubin, and today I'll be talking about moral skepticism and moral nihilism. Recently, Matt Dillahunty debated Jordan Peterson on the topics of religion and ethics. And he seemed insulted when Peterson pointed out his relatively lax skepticism as it applied to some moral standards. While I don't agree with Peterson's conclusion about the necessity of a transcendent being in order to establish an ethical system, I do think he pointed out some things that Matt might not have expanded upon in their debate, so I'd like to expand on those things here. And Matt, if you see this, let us know what you think of my assessment. To be fair, I'll be covering Peterson's side of the argument and all of its flaws next time. Since this is Milwaukee Atheists, you probably know what a skeptic is, but just in case you don't, we're gonna go over some of the basic requirements. You don't just accept any claim as true. You try to apply a lens of reasoning to everything. Nothing is self-evident to you. If you remember the second episode of Armchair Philosophy, in which I discussed Cartesian dualism, you probably remember René Descartes' strategy of doubt. Anything which can be doubted should and must be doubted until there is reason to not doubt it anymore. So we've seen through Descartes how a skeptic might apply their reasoning to metaphysics and epistemology. But how might a skeptic approach the field of ethics when they can't even necessarily verify a difference between observer and observed? The simple answer is they don't. Now, that isn't to say that every skeptic you come across is going to beat or murder or harass or steal from you. It means that they don't believe in a necessarily coherent ethical system. They still have to comply with the rules of society in order to survive. As Jordan Peterson pointed out in the debate, a skeptic can't assume such premises as that life is preferable to death, or that physical violence is wrong. To be fair, while Dillahunty is indeed a skeptic and a rational one, he's not much of a moral skeptic. He seems to favor rule consequentialism, a system of ethics which states that because of the general consequences of some actions in some circumstances, we can create rules. He combines that with a healthy dose of utilitarianism, saying that rules can and should be broken or changed when the circumstances change. So when Matt says that he doesn't follow a simple consequentialism, he's correct. He follows a more nuanced consequentialism, a rule consequentialism plus utilitarianism. And it can't be simplified in the same way that normal consequentialism can be. In fact, he allows himself a lot more opportunities to change along the way. However, due to his preference for this consequentialist system, he cannot describe himself as a moral skeptic. That's because moral skepticism actually is a thing. It's an actual term that's used. And it's usually used in conjunction with moral nihilism, though the two are distinct points of view, and I'll explain why. The moral skeptic, because of their heavy skepticism, reject the view that any knowledge can be had for any moral claims. That is to say, when you make the judgment that something is good or bad, it's because of your personal preferences in addition to societal factors. But your actual knowledge of the thing being good or bad can never be justified. Moral nihilists make a much more extreme statement that nothing is good or bad. You see, they're similar stances, but they're very different. The skeptics make an epistemological claim that any knowledge which human beings have is insufficient as far as morals are concerned. and the moral nihilists are making a metaphysical claim that nothing is good or bad in and of itself. Which seems to be something that Jordan Peterson doesn't understand, so Jordan, if you're watching this, take notes. No matter what your philosophical views are, it's almost impossible to live in modern American society without living in accordance with the rules set up as they are. However, just because certain rules can be established which improve relations between people within a system, doesn't mean those things are, in fact, good or bad in and of themselves. One can recognize the importance of a rule in a given system without actually recognizing it as a moral standard. For Mr. Dillahunty to express himself as a skeptic, as the fundamental basis of his way of interacting with the universe, he should at least familiarize himself with the concept of moral skepticism so he can say whether or not he wants to be described as that. He certainly has a preference, in general, for life over death. But as I've covered in my episodes on Epicurus and Socrates, that's really baseless. It's just a personal preference. There's no reason to prefer life over death. It's important to note that not all skeptics are moral skeptics. Moral nihilists can generally be considered a subcategory of moral skeptics. So every moral nihilist is also a moral skeptic. Every moral skeptic is also a skeptic. However, just because if A then B, and if B then C, it does not follow that if C then A or B. That's all for now. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Armchair Philosophy. If you did, give us a like, a comment, maybe subscribe to us, support us on Patreon, worship us, whatever you may do. We have t-shirts for sale on Teespring, and if you want one of these fancy and wonderful Milwaukee Atheist t-shirts for yourself, which have a little slogan on the back to show your support or to show that you are in Milwaukee and an atheist, you can buy those at milwaukeeatheist.com. And that's all for now. Bye-bye.